Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. So are you starting recording right now?
I just turned it on. So
is it recording?
Yeah.
And then what do you do? Edit it or no?
Yeah, I can.
You do edit?
Yeah. Well, my editing is essentially just cleaning up my own idiocy, my own, or if I'm going a lot, I get annoyed by that, and then.
So you clean up the ums?
Yeah, mine. And then
but not the other person's?
Well, if the other guest is bad about it, then I do, because it becomes distracting for listeners, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they have some kind of tick or something like that. And then if it would be something that you just don't want on the show, then I would take that out. Yeah.
Okay.
Or I could pause it. These are here's a, this is evidence going back 20 years now of and then if it's like this, I might edit this part. Obviously, you don't want to hear somebody opening a bag. But look at this now. That's what I've been listening to over the years. Go on your shows.
Wow.
Saw you play at. Seen you at.
A lifetime in a plastic bag.
That's right.
You know,
sorry, man.
That's what happens.
But it's in a plastic bag, in a canvas bag. How's that? And then some of these, I think it was a city winery, even though I seen you at the, what's the one in Gowanus? The
Bell Jar.
The Bell Jar. Seen you there, and I seen you at the Canal. I've seen you at least
the Bell House.
I've seen you more than 3 times, but I don't remember all the shows. But you signed a couple of these even back then.
One. That's kind of a shitty autograph. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Well,
did you sign
there was
this
no
one?
Sharpie, so if you would have handed me a Sharpie,
that's the problem.
It would have been.
I haven't. I thought maybe you signed it.
Way more intricate.
Anyway.
Hard to do with a ballpoint pen.
Yeah, but it was good to go over these and go through them and fish them out, because I was able to find out what I don't have, which was kind of important to me. Like, I don't have.
I thought you were about to say you were going to find out what you don't like.
I was listening to both. I can't do that, because I feel like even there are songs that I do like that stand out, but then the rest of the stuff I can't find anything I don't. I just find like you create a vibe that I like. So
yeah.
Even it's like almost album oriented stuff. It's not always like
usually
that,
right? I think I usually kind of do
or the production
concepts, loose concepts.
Yeah, like the production on Boogie Christ it's a very different from other stuff that you did, and it's got horns on it and some stuff like that. So.
That was approached very differently. That was all approached with the words first.
Okay.
So
that is different.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of changes. I kind of made up the songs really fast to like just house the words. So it leaned on production a bit more because of that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm working on acoustic songs, and just building them to be able to like resonate with just voice and guitar, and that's. I don't know. That's a different kind of challenge.
That one you just played before that you're working on?
Yeah.
Is that going to be included, do you think?
Well, I mean, that's another new one. I've been writing a lot of them. Like once you get the ball rolling and then you keep going and you kind of go deeper and deeper. And so that's like the latest one.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's another thing that I've really found remarkable is just your prolific. It's not that the other artists that aren't as prolific couldn't be. It's just, I think your approach to doing music, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your approach gets out of the way of those things that often block other people. Like, I have to have all these songs work. They all have to sound different than everything I've done before. They have to move me. They have to do they set all these criteria or something, like a litmus for each one. Mm-hmm. And that just sort of slows you down, and sometimes to the extent where you're just blocked.
Well, it just instantly, it centers you right in your mind. It centers you in your head. And once you're centered there, that's not a really great place to be, I don't think. Like in terms of, so it's like it's just a balance between the critical sort of head voice that can sort of guide and sculpt it to make it stronger. Because you don't want none of that. Mm-hmm. You don't want to just be like full-on hippie about it.
Well, not all the time, maybe.
Not all the time, but you need to be a full-on hippie about it, too.
Maybe that's a good stage to go through first, though. Maybe it's just a matter of, get,
I think full-on hippie is better first, and then bring in the head, as a spice.
Right.
Because what you want is it to be free, first and foremost, sound fun, you know. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, talking about making art, you know, you're dealing with like also just like tapping into the subconscious, you know, where all the good stuff is. So it's interesting when a song like, oh, you're talking about the outside noise, the horn and stuff?
No, but it's like on every show I do. So it's okay. That's part of my soundtrack.
Oh, good.
That's
yeah.
Cool. Sirens and horns are...
Yeah, they're almost on every song as a siren or a horn honking at the end.
That's kind of cool too, though.
Yeah, I'm you know, embracing it.
Yeah, you'd have to deal probably with a lot of pushback from your producer friends and stuff like that are more uptight about anything like that happening.
Depends on the producer, I guess.
Are you going to record it here?
I mean, I'm recording a lot of it now, you know. I don't know how it will stand at the end. You know, I'm just it's just a long process putting together a record, I guess. It always ends up being that, you know, usually.
But in
especially a solo record.
Right. But even your band albums feel like they're solo albums on some level too. Because you're the guy up front and you're writing, I'm assuming, majority of the material. No? Like with Lonely Astronaut stuff.
Yeah, with the Lonely Astronauts, I think, that was more like that. But like with Arthur Buck, you know, Peter's writing the changes.
Okay.
And I was writing on top of that, like top line stuff.
Oh, very good. Also, I noticed on that song you played, I know it's a ballad, but do you have a difficulty just singing in that very low register where it's hard to like let loose a little bit, even if it's just, I don't know, singing in that register kind of keeps the emotional performance of the song at a low key, you know what I mean? Yeah,
well, that one might need development in that way. Like you might be
pop up a register.
See, I read that as a criticism.
That's interesting. It's totally not meant that way.
Yeah.
In fact, it's kind of like I'm impressed that you can do that.
No, I do read that as a criticism. Like the way my brain hears that is like it wasn't emotionally like engaging enough.
No, I'm talking about from a performance perspective, not from a listener's perspective or a like on the receiving end. It totally moved me. I'm just thinking when I sings, I'm not going to make this about me, but when I sing songs, or even ones I have written a few, that I feel like the upper register makes it something meaningful for me when I'm singing it. It has nothing to do with who's listening to it. It's probably worse for them because I'm probably straining too much for my register, you know. But I get something out of the performance of it. Being able to, you know.
Well, no, that's true. More of an emotional fever pitch.
Yeah.
If you're pushing it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, it's like letting it...
But then there's like the Nick Drake, Pink Moon type of emotion, which is like that sort of whispery, melodic...
Or everything Leonard Cohen ever did.
Right. Well, then he would bring in the female octave, up octave vocals that would enforce the chorus or something like that.
Yeah, and again...
And so I do that as well.
Totally. I'm just I'm talking about in the performance of the song. Is it a nice thing to be able to maybe in with a bunch of other songs to be able to have that as a nice way of
exactly
coming down a bit and bringing everything down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. But no, I'll criticize you more as we talk because it'll be
really that's coming.
No,
I wonder.
It is not. I've done that by like once or twice said something. And I don't know why I had this, like, that totally was not a case of that. But I have done that once or twice.
Are you sure now that you're owning up to it in the past?
It's so arbitrary.
Seems like maybe I nailed it.
This passive-aggressive asshole came into my home.
Exactly, bro.
No.
Oh, some passive-aggressive shit.
I don't know. I felt like I could trap myself into some little corner, and I just had to kind of go with it a little bit. I'm talking about some other time. Where I did it like once. I was with this director who has a reputation of being very self-absorbed in his work and very narcissistic, just like making every film about himself. And which is, he's not the only one.
I mean, on some level, when people make art, it's always about themselves on some level.
That's very true, right? And no, but he puts himself into films, and he always has nude scenes. It's that level of where he's loves himself that much. It doesn't bother me, but I brought it up, and it was like stupid because it immediately made him feel
Awkward.
Sure, it was awkward, and then also it's like, is this
What'd
guy
you
now
say?
going to
How'd
pounce
you-
on me? And I was like, got quickly. I said, I'm really just kidding with you. I'm sorry. And then at the end, it came up. I brought it up, or he brought it up, and I was so glad because I was like, I don't know why I said that. I'm just, just stupid. It's true, but I don't know why I said it. I didn't do that.
Well, what'd you say?
I can't remember. I have to listen. I think it might even be on. I must have taken it out. I must have edited it out. I don't.
You said, "Why are you always nude in your own films?"
not quite like that. But he always showed he would show his genitals and shit. Like,
oh, really?
Well, it's like he would always have a sex scene or like something where he would always be dating models in his movies. I'm even blanking. I blanked on his name.
Who is it now? Vincent Gallo?
No, that's on a different level. That's on a different level. No, Vincent Gallo has the what's called the cred, the
street cred.
Well, for sure, but he's he played a real instrumental part in the whole
indie film world.
Oh yeah,
yeah, Buffalo
and
66.
Oh yeah, but even before that, just in the downtown scene with John, you were talking about John Lurie. So could you talk about that?
Well, I don't know John Lurie at all, but I'm just saying I was working with somebody who worked on one of his books.
And there might be something that you were...
Well, and then I'm trying to develop a podcast again because I put out a podcast.
I look for... Obviously, it's not... I don't know if it's out there.
It's not out there?
Okay. I don't know. Maybe...
I think it might have gotten taken down. We did like 10 episodes. It was called Nothing to Talk About. And we did long... It was years ago. We did like 10 episodes. Mm-hmm. But it didn't ever go through... It just never got organized enough. And then it fizzled because of that, I think.
Okay. Plus
so I'd like to try it again,
Yeah, let me know if I'm. You can pick my brains for sure of how I do it, and then I feel like after we're talking about a little bit about how you evolve, and I feel like even in just doing this show, I'm finally hitting a stride. I'm really, really digging like just the fact that you're here, and it's like a film show, but I realize I should never have called it Filmwax because. Mm-hmm. It just limits it, the branding of it, putting it out there, calling it that limits it. We could talk about film, but that's not what I'm interested in talking about. But
right.
By calling it that, I'm
pigeonholing it.
Yeah, it's like I'm limiting who I can bring on some level. I don't let it ultimately, but it makes it a little more awkward when people are listening and they discover I'm talking to,
But you know what? If you define, the podcast will define the name ultimately. And a name like Filmwax is sort of esoteric enough to where it could encapsulate a bunch of things.
Right. Film chatter with
Filmwax.
Yeah. Well,
Film chat less so. Then we're talking film. Filmwax is a little more open.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're 500 and something episodes into this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, it started like I said, on this internet thing, and it was like 30-minute conversations, and I quickly. So it was actually broadcast through the internet, and they had all these different shows. So I was on this schedule, like a terrestrial radio type of approach to it. So I had let's say 3 to 3:30 on Wednesdays or whenever they put it up, and nobody's listening, of course. So and that's why I just ended up moving into a podcast. But I went from. I said I'm just going to double this up a half hour, and then you're only talking really for 20 of the minutes, and so I felt it wasn't enough. I didn't feel like I was getting a lot, so I started to invite. Second guest usually, so I'd have 2 a week, so it became like an hour. But when I made the podcasts, there were just a lot of these very short ones. So the first 100 or something, or the first 70 or however many are these short ones that were easy, and they were all produced by other people in that company. So when I started, but still, I do a lot of them. I do a lot, and I like it. I do like it.
How long does it take you to edit one?
Because of my type of editing, it doesn't take that long. I can get through it takes maybe twice the length of the actual thing, just because I'm cleaning it up and and then I put it together as a show, and I'm not really mastering it. It's just talk, and I feel like the people, it sounds good, and I don't go I'm not like an engineer about it. You know what I mean? I'm just really approaching it like. Make sure it works, make sure everything flows, and then people are really just interested in the conversation. They don't care that it sounds like you're in a sealed off room. It doesn't have to sound like you're on that level, but with this equipment it really gets pretty close, I'd say,
That's cool.
With the occasional siren or car horn.
I'm going to use mine now like this.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it sounds good. I did one with the chief film critic of Variety magazine, The Trade. I did it with him a couple of days ago, and we just did it actually in a restaurant, and it was a bad choice, like just doing it in there. But I really wanted him on and to talk about as the year-end awards and all that stuff around film comes up. It was great to get on such an important guy, I guess, in that world. And so I said, sure, we can do it there. But it'll come out fine, but it'll be distracting to hear the espresso machine and things like that.
Right.
So that's
clinking glasses.
Yeah.
Fork sounds.
Yeah. It wasn't during the height of like dinner hour or something like that. So anyhow. But thanks for doing this and for just being over. What do you?
Thanks for having me.
What kind of questions do you have for doing the podcast? Did you have any questions or?
I suppose just like my head goes instantly to sort of boring technical ones, like how do you find the hosting sites and all that? And,
yeah, I can definitely. Yeah.
How do you book it? How do you keep it consistent? How often do you upload one? Once a week?
I tried to do that, and then because I have an OCD problem with overbooking and overextending and over-obligating myself in terms of like their film's coming out on Friday or their Kickstarter is ending next whatever. So I end up having to sometimes do 2 a week, which, I guess Marin does, right? But
or Joe Rogan does like 3 or 4.
Yeah. I'd like to keep it to once a week, and I would like to take the Marin model in the sense of, or not quite Rogan, that's way too long for I can't do that. But I could do, I would love it if the show just evolved to the point where it was like an hour or an hour and a half, or however, an hour plus, let's say, with one person or a couple of people, one segment though. So what happens more often than not is I'll have 2 segments, which is okay, but I do like getting into it. And I think the people that listen to me do like the longer, more nuanced type of conversation. It's just, But you asked a question, I'm rambling. One show a week would be ideal, and that's usually what I do.
Right. Do you ever miss a week?
I don't, because I have so much stuff backed up. Like I should say, like on the shelf.
Episodes backlogged.
Yeah, I have got like right now about 7 or 8 at least. Yeah, so I have shows going through up to February at least.
How important is it usually to get them out as close to the time you did them?
Not at all.
Not at all?
No, not unless it's like a certain percentage of my stuff is time sensitive.
Right.
Because
people talk about events of the day.
Well, it's more specifically I had on the director of Cold War, this guy Paweł Pawlikowski, who did Ida a few years ago. Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
He's a Polish filmmaker, but he won the Oscar last year for Best Foreign Film. And he's got a big, a lot of people love his films. And he has a new one that's opening up. Just opened up on Friday. It's at the Film Forum.
What's it called?
Cold War.
Oh, Cold War.
Yeah, it's about his parents, sort of. And it was at the New York Film Festival, which is where I saw it. But it played a can, and he's one of those international darling type of filmmakers. And he teaches film in Poland, in Warsaw, where he lives. And really nice guy. So that I had to, we recorded it last week, and I had like a little less than a week to get it done. But it was only a 25-minute conversation, so it was easy to edit. That's cool. And then I just put the audio from the trailer on it, a little bit of that, like a minute of that, and kind of gives a little bit of an idea of what the film's about. Sometimes when I'm editing it, I'll include, I might interrupt. This conversation might lend itself where I might, if we're talking about an album or a song or something, maybe I'll play it, I'll fade to it. Maybe.
Underneath.
Yeah. But that's not typically, I don't like to do, my approach is also not that I don't enjoy listening to other people do it, but I don't do a lot of bells and whistles. My approach is very, very basic approach, and I think that works.
That's what people like, I think.
I think so, too.
Laid back. They just like to be witnessing a conversation, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I like.
Yeah, especially while they're noodling, doing something else.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember when I started, and we're all way past this point, but when I started, everybody said, you have to do a video thing to it. You have to get it on YouTube. And it turned out that's not the case. It turns out people came around and said, no, we prefer audio. We don't have to sit in front of a computer or stare at a phone.
Yeah.
But we can actually, walk to, wherever. We'll
Baskins
take a walk.
and Robbins.
Baskins and Robbins.
So do you upload these
31 flavors, eh?
Do you upload these on YouTube? Okay.
I just put the segment though. So I was started putting the full episode on YouTube, meaning intros, my intro. I do an intro at every show, and I put the time signature in the description of the show. So like, if you want to just hop right over to our conversation, I'll say, the segment begins 3.5 minutes in, so people can just forward and not listen to my intro if they don't want to. I try to make it as positive a listening experience. That's kind of important. Like, I want to make it about the listeners having the option just to go straight to, like, Marin does a 10-minute intro, but people are more invested in Marin.
Mm-hmm.
Me, it's more about the guest. I'm just being honest. Where, if I bring on Pavel,
don't be so humble.
There are some people who probably listen to my intro. I'm not or just do the whole thing, and I keep them. I try not to go too long with them, but I talk about what's coming up on the show, maybe a little anecdote or other things that are going on, and then I do an outro, and I'm sure nobody listens to that. Oh, so on YouTube, what I started doing is put the full episodes, and then I realized there's sometimes I'm using music in it, like clips of music, and I'm having trouble getting it up on YouTube because of copyright infringement, right? So I stopped doing that, and then I realized I should just put the segment up. And then what was good is, like, I'll have somebody like Larry, whose apartment we met in the other day.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very talented guy. He's a producer, filmmaker, and actor. He does all sorts. He's got his hands in a lot of different things. He's been on my show over the years, like 5 times. So if I put the segments up individually, then I can do like a playlist also. Like, somebody who loves his Larry can just listen to 4 hours of our conversations.
4 hours of Larry. That's going to be the name of my podcast. There it was.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. YouTube serves its purpose, but let's see. I set it up with the help of a friend of mine who's very, very tech. He's a techie guy. So he set up the feed, which was actually originally I set it up on Rooftop Films, which is an outdoor movie series every summer. I don't know if you know them. They were in Brooklyn. They did stuff at Dumbo, too, where you used to live, right?
Yeah. I lived there for 10-something years.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah. I listened to the Marin thing again, so I was
refreshed.
In preparation. Well, I wanted to make sure I refreshed my memory about, and I didn't know a lot of stuff, too. I just, listened to your music, but I didn't know a lot about your personal life. But I thought I should prepare, so I knew a lot of the answers.
Oh, okay.
Before I asked them. Which somebody told me about when I was at this internet radio thing. I'm doing like 90% of the talking. But this part of the show is me talking about podcasting. So
yeah.
Right? So I used to not really be that prepared. I didn't know nearly as much about film and the distribution and, all the details of in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go in, I would ask questions, and I just sounded sometimes pretty stupid, I guess. And they tried to be polite, and they were like the producer of that, who's producing it, and she was like, "You should really do more
Try harder."
So insulted. Yeah. Well, just be more prepared. Like, you know the answer. I just like, well, that's not what it's about. My ego got in the way. I was insulted. So, but she was absolutely right, it turns out, and I'll never admit it to her, but.
Well, you just did.
Yeah, I did. No, she was totally right, and I learned that's something I learned about podcasting is it's not always important for everybody, but I do try to be as. And once in a while, I'll still ask a question. Like, I'll bring on the guy who directed a new movie the other day, and I said, "Is this your first feature?" And that shows that I really didn't do my due diligence because I wasn't playing devil's advocate. You wouldn't ask that particular question.
Because it wasn't his
It would have been more
feature?
like, was this your second or third feature? That would have been more of an educated question. No, it was his third. And he did a pretty big one called Filth, and that's, I forget who was in it, but it's had some pretty Scottish actor.
Filth was the same guy that wrote...
the book.
The book.
Is well known because it's the same guy who wrote Trainspotting. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. You see, even more.
Yeah.
You were even more educated.
Well, my preparation for this has been, days of NyQuil. Because I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm just getting over a head cold. So I feel a little...
You sound good. Sound good for the show.
I feel a little brain
Fuzzy.
dead.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have to kick me into gear. I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I'm caffeinated and I've had a protein shake. And I worked on a song all morning. And I meditated to the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is my latest obsession.
Meditation?
No, the Ho'oponopono prayer.
Ho'oponopono?
You know it?
No.
Ho'oponopono?
What is it?
It's a Hawaiian prayer. And it basically goes, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Just feels good to say and hear, doesn't it? I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And what it does is it's ultimately about forgiveness. And if you sort of meditate on it and sort of apply it, first you apply it to any situation, person, place, or thing, yourself, God, whatever, that you have any kind of issue with. And it sort of just clears that space. You're kind of letting go. It sort of bypasses your ego because you're kind of surrendering your position of, I'm right. Why should I say I'm sorry? So it sort of like overrides that, kind of makes you sort of like fake it till you make it. It sort of makes you wiser than you are. And I started experimenting with it, and it just, the results have been pretty wild because it actually works. Mm-hmm. It feels like it actually does release you. So there's these like meditations on YouTube with it, Ho'oponopono, and this, I forget his name, Dr. Hugh Len. He was this psychiatrist that there was this hospital, I think in Canada, for the criminally insane. Mm-hmm. And he cured the whole hospital just by using that prayer over their files. Never saw any of them personally. And ultimately, a few years later, the hospital shut down. I don't know, you got to look into this story, but sure. It's got a magical quality to it.
He had them say it to themselves without meaning it, or he said over their files? He said it
over their files. Never,
that is...
No, I know. That's very woo-woo.
Yeah, a little bit. And does he say it in English?
But it's documented. It's the thing about it is it's documented. This actually happened. I mean, there was a hospital for the criminally...
And what's his name? Hugh Landy?
Dr. Hugh Lin. Let me look it up.
What's his last name?
I'm
you're going to just verify? I thought you were going to say Eugene Landy. You know who he was, right? You know whose doctor he was, right?
Hugh Len. Yeah, Hugh Len. Hewlen. Look up that guy. Look up Ho'oponopono.
Oh, totally.
And let go of... Over the holidays, this is a good...
Okay. I totally agree with that. There is something to the power of saying it to yourself. I definitely know that's the case. Because
100%.
Yeah.
No, those words have a lot of power, and it's like you're just kind of cleansing your soul with it, just I don't know, especially if you do it for long periods of time. Last week, I was waking up and going on a 3-mile run on the East River with that prayer in my headphones, and then I go to yoga class at Yoga to the People, and then
I heard about that place.
I would breathe and have that mantra in my head the whole time, and that's how I was starting my every day, an hour and a half of that.
Yeah.
It's you're definitely weighing the deck in your favor that you're going to have a good day. Uh-huh. I mean, when you start your day like that, it's hard to then get all bummed out and in your head.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
It really is. It's it seems kind of extreme on one level, but on another level, it's not that huge of an investment to have a pretty killer day,
Yeah, right.
And the way I see it, too, is it's just no matter what, every day is going to be full of some burden. I think you either, decide what the burden is and sort of proactively incorporate the burden into your life, or else you just end up laying around procrastinating and being in your head and miserable anyway.
And the burden is, it can overtake or overwhelm you, or you can be in control of it on the level, at least, that this is one segment of my world of my life. This does not control my whole, or there's more to my life. I don't have to let that monopolize my entire brain. And
you're just giving yourself space to actually be in the present, and also you're clearing out all these blocks in your subconscious, so that new things can manifest and new things can come into your sort of field of consciousness. See, his point was, and the way he applied it with his patients, was everything in his field of consciousness he took 100% responsibility for. Mm-hmm. So if somebody who was criminally insane came into his field of consciousness, even on the level of being a patient, at a hospital he was working for that he never saw, he just saw the files, he took on that person's burden as if it was 100% his, because of the fact that it was in his field of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fascinating and very empowering.
Yeah.
Because if you take full responsibility for it, you just ultimately empower yourself completely. Whereas when you sort of tell some people about this, they think of it as oh, that seems kind of weak, you're taking a knee or apologizing.
Right.
But it's actually the opposite, because you're just owning everything, and you don't have to necessarily say it to somebody who has abused you or traumatized you, you can keep it between yourself and whatever higher power you believe in. But you're by like having them in your heart and in your mind and applying that prayer, you're releasing yourself from it, from that burden and that toxic burden. And then I mean, all these kind of things to me, they kind of like the older I get in making art and being an artist and staying relevant as an artist is like, you have to, I feel like you have to sort of work on yourself in these ways, or else your soul like diminishes to the point where whatever you're doing doesn't have any sort of power anymore. You know,
right? Which is, I'm sure, a constant.
It's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge.
Yeah, imagine. Yeah, I should tell you because that when I first came across your first, it must have been maybe your first or second album because it was definitely still the late '90s or something. And you just started like in '96, right, with your first album or something around that time.
Yeah, I got signed in '95
to Real World.
Yeah, to Real World.
And a friend of mine, Eric, came in. I was working at Sony Music at the time, and he came in. You know this guy? I'm like, I've heard of him, but I don't. And so he left me the album. And
what were you doing at Sony?
I was working in the creative services department, so all the art directors that were designing all the packages and everything.
You were overseeing them?
No.
You were helping them, or what?
Kind of like what I was responsible is that everything had been done on analog or film and done by hand until a certain point. And everything was transitioning for a while already, but I came in and we had a brand new like website, like intranet type of site, B2B site, where we would put up publicity stuff or images and logos and content for, like, if anybody was going to promote or advertise our stuff, they would need to be able to get access to elements and that kind of thing, and covers. And so I was overseeing that site. That was like really my main thing for a long time. And that evolved over when all of a sudden everybody was downloading. So we had to make sure I had to kind of project manage every package that came in, that there was the correct cover made for, shrinking it down to nothing, for the single, essentially, or for the album. For at the time there was the Napsters and AOL, all those companies. iTunes was one of them, but there were a bunch, if you remember. So it was kind of in that weird phase. So I was like working with them in that whole process of putting out a package. Once everything was finished, then I would do what I needed to do, and I would also archive the packaging art, the digital files, and all that. So it was kind of a weird role. But I was there for 10 years and then got laid off in 2006.
The day the music died.
I know. What I was going to say, though, was that at that time, I also just immediately was turned on to your art. I mean, I just loved it from the start. So that was a big, all from the beginning as well, just really appreciated your artwork.
Thank you.
As you're an enormously talented guy.
Thank you, sir.
And I don't say that just to blow air up at whatever the expression, but I just appreciate and respect your commitment to art making, whether it's music or painting or illustration, whatever it is you're.
Yeah, definitely twin passions. I mean, I have been a visual artist as long as a musical one, and vice versa. So. And
your sister was also a painter, right?
Yeah, she's a painter too.
She is?
Yeah.
Cause I remember that came up. Did you? I kind of just want, for people that are listening who don't know your stuff, I kind of did want to go back in time a little bit about, if that's okay.
Sure.
I mean, and I know you've probably told these anecdotes, some of these things before,
thousands of times,
maybe, but you have some very funny and cool stories about that time in the late '90s, also. And there's one in particular. Of course, you always have to tell the Lou story at the Fez. And I was living on 15th Street and 3rd Avenue, okay, with the woman who's now my son's mother. And we had our engagement party at the Time Cafe. Mm-hmm. Not concurrently when you were downstairs playing at Fez.
Right.
But I was a place I, would go to see shows, Fez. Yeah. But I know I would have remembered if you were, I don't think I was at that show. But I definitely went down, and I knew who you were at that time. But no, this would have been a little after, because you were it was sort of a showcase when you played down there for right? And it was for Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
Because you started Real World, which is his label.
That's right.
And you even did some of his album work, right? His work on some of his singles or something?
Well, there was this thing called Recording Week at Real World, and so there was a lot of improvisation in the studio. Like he would open it up for a week
internationally
every year. Yeah, and
is that in the UK?
Yeah, Real World Studios in Box, England, which is like 10 minutes away from Bath.
I've been there.
Yeah, and there would be all these like collaborations, and there was a couple that I wound up on with him. And so that's what you're probably referring to. But that was on this album called Big Blue Ball.
Oh, okay. I remember.
Right.
No, I have that one.
Yeah. So that's what that was.
Yeah. I think. Oh, okay. Because I thought maybe there was a single in the artwork on it or something. That might be.
Well, he covered In the Sun as well.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. And I think he put that out as a single at one point. Yeah.
Okay.
He did it for Princess Diana tribute album.
I see.
Yeah. Actually, his version of In the Sun came out before mine.
Oh. That's funny.
Yeah, he was like, "Yeah, do you mind if I cover this song?" And I was like, "No, I don't mind at all."
Yeah, Peter Gabriel.
He's like, "Well, it'll come out before yours." I'm like, "That's okay."
Guy who wrote Salisbury Hill and Shock the Monkey and whatever else.
I love Shock the Monkey.
Yeah.
I covered Shock the Monkey.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, for his Scratch Your Back. I did it with a Moog guitar and just voice.
Uh-huh.
I love that song.
Me too.
It's like one of the first singles I ever bought when I was 10, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. No, I definitely was not a Genesis listener. Was never into prog rock, but when around the time So came out, I definitely went to summer camp, and everybody was into Peter Gabriel, but that's when I really started listening to his original those title-less solo albums that he did.
I like Genesis, but I like the 80s hit Genesis with Phil Collins singing. That's the first Genesis I ever heard.
Me too.
I was a kid, and of course, like Abacabin or whatever that one was. You know,
yeah,
I loved that, but I was a kid. You know,
yeah.
I didn't really hear the Peter Gabriel Genesis until I was older.
Yeah,
went back in time.
Yeah. Do you like prog rock at all?
I mean, yeah, I like. When I was a kid, I grew up loving Rush. Like Rush was a huge, like Hemispheres.
Yeah,
I really liked Rush, Moving Pictures, and even the first one with Working Man on it, and that kind of led into Led Zeppelin and then Bob Dylan. I mean, I didn't go too far into prog rock, but I guess Rush was something about Rush. Even now, to me, they just rock really hard, like harder than a lot of the other prog bands, I think.
And they are royalty in Canada.
They should be, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think they're great.
Well, like England, I think Canada values their old seasoned musical artists as much as the new guys. Whereas here in America, we kind of dispose of the older folks.
Don't say that. Now that I'm one of them.
You're not one of them, but
I think I am.
No. No, but I'm just saying it's everything about America has always been about. It's part of like the identity of America from the start was always about. Let's get rid of the Native Americans. They're the old ones, so we're going to bring in the new guys.
I see what you're saying.
I mean, it seems like it's been part of
embedded in our sort of
fabric.
DNA or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but you go to America. I mean, you go to like
America.
You go to America.
You go to America, and you never know what's going to happen.
I'll let this go. I'll let it go. But and I noticed also my due diligence that our birthdays are like right up on each other. I'm on September 24th.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm September 28th.
Yeah.
Libra.
What
do you think about it? You like balance? You have a hard time making decisions?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I think so. Or as soon as I make a decision, I second guess it.
Like I have to go to the bathroom right now, but I can't decide if I should have
you should definitely
pause.
do it.
Okay.
We'll definitely pause.
Lift off 'cause we're going into outer space. It's about time to make this world a better place. Hold back the fear, it starts to cry, but tell me right now, have you ever just been satisfied? Hold on, you can make it, I see. Why should you fall? Why should you fall?
You're feeling better.
Yeah, I think it's just getting started is the hardest part with everything.
Oh, getting it started, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is it going to be? It's going to be like it's going to be conversations with people then.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
if
good.
I can think of anything to say.
Yeah, listening to. I mean, when I listen to you and Marin from I think 2014, if I'm not mistaken. You guys really had a great vibe. It was it was strong conversation, and you just seemed to really hit it off. And you had a good, and maybe, and I think like what we're doing is I'm not going to compare it or contrast it, but I think this is really enjoyable. Yeah. So I do think you're good at this.
Okay, good. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for some encouragement.
Oh, totally.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just think like, we live in a time where it's like. Mm-hmm. I don't know. The good thing about it is that we can all sort of determine our own voice. And it's like, I love...
As opposed to, let's say, a record company doing that for you.
Right. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, or like there's no gate. You're your own gatekeeper now, which back in the day you would have thought is like, oh my God, that's like a dream come true. But then when you're like living it in real time, it is actually... daunting because you're your own gatekeeper, and then you're like, why am I gatekeeping myself? Mm-hmm. You have to face up to that. Like if you're not putting, and then of course it's not all about putting yourself out there, like I don't mean it like if you're not putting yourself out there, you're not sort of, maybe you don't want to do something, but personally speaking, I do want to participate in the conversation of culture and life and everything like that. And I certainly partake in like consuming it because I'm like a podcast. I love.
Well, clearly you're listening to Marin's show.
Marin, and I like Joe Rogan's podcast. I like podcasts in general. I just think that it's usually more entertaining to me than watching a Netflix show, for instance. Like, if you find a really killer Netflix series and you do the whole like sort of binge watch, that's of course totally fun.
Right.
But that happens once, and for me that doesn't happen often. No. And plus, I'm glad it doesn't happen often because
it's a total time suck.
It's a time suck.
It is. Yeah.
Whereas, like, okay, I'm working a lot alone in the studio now, so you need to take lots of breaks. I guess the word is like you're supposed to work for 45 minutes and take 15 minutes.
Is that right?
I've heard stuff like that.
From who?
I don't know, and I might be getting the exact amount of time right, but that kind of makes sense. That oscillating of focused work, and then you take 10 minutes, and then
Yeah.
Rather than going,
like
let me go
out.
5.
It's like working out. You do a power set, and then you take a break, and then you do another power. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it's 100% like that.
Right.
And I find podcasts are a good. A good break time activity because you can throw one on. Usually you end up taking more than 15 minutes. You get sucked into something, but
sure.
Then you pause it. It's no big deal.
Yeah. And I'm always looking, man. I'm always looking for people that, like a lot of the podcasts I listen to, a lot of the film ones are disappointing because they're just fans. Not that they don't have, they're smart or whatever, but they'll talk about one particular classic movie, and then it's like, okay, another guy's doing that. And I'm probably alienating people that listen to my show right now, but because a lot of people that listen to my show are like that, people that are either in the film community or who are doing like podcasts, like film podcasts probably. But what I'm really looking for, and I don't care what the subject is nuanced, in-depth conversations about real things, with people, or stories, people that really have something to say and that enjoy sharing and connecting with some through talking, which is what I'm trying to establish. That's why when I get I've been offered like really high profile people on my show and they're available for 10 minutes and I've said no, it's not
10 minutes is not enough.
So okay, I can plug your movie.
That 10 minutes is like the awkward phase.
Yeah, totally. It's an awkward. It takes a while to hit your groove, and people can tell pretty quickly what I'm about, but it still takes a while. And also, it's insulting because you're basically giving me enough time to plug your project. And then that's it. It's over. Thanks.
Did you see that Orson Welles film?
I did.
Which one?
The Other Side of the Wind or the documentary?
Okay, both. I mean, dude, that documentary.
They'll Love Me When I'm Dead. The filmmaker is on.
I felt like that was fucking amazing, dude. Did
the making
you?
of. Yeah.
I mean, because it became the film that he was. It became The Other Side of the Wind, that documentary.
Yeah.
And it was like
There's a lot of meta.
It felt like
it
felt like his final like work of genius. Like, because it was like that final dream was in fact realized as the story of his life. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Like when I started seeing like in the last 10 minutes that's where it was going, 10, 15, whatever it was, when I was like, oh, it landed on me so hard. Like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like amazing film. Did you think so? Or
which one? The
doc.
Orson Welles or the doc?
The documentary.
Yeah, the guy who made that documentary, who also did the Mr. Rogers documentary. Maybe
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's the same guy, and he did 50 Feet from Stardom, which you probably saw.
I did see that.
Yeah.
That was also quite good.
Yeah, so it's Morgan Neville. His name is. I almost said Spurlock. His name is Morgan Neville. And I was going to say, it's the Other Side of the Wind itself, who, by the way, I've also been doing a series of conversations on that film over the years with the guy who wrote the book about it.
Yeah.
The whole story behind it. And then now the guy who wrote this book that I was carrying with me he was a producer on the other. He was in that documentary, and he's in the movie, the original movie, The Other Side of the Wind. He's one of the people. Yeah, Joseph McBride. And he writes about, old Hollywood. Anyway,
that movie blew my mind, man. The way it all came together, like it was like ghostly. And who's the director that he dissed on Johnny Carson or whatever?
Peter Bogdanovich.
Yeah,
he did my show.
Peter Bogdanovich is so cool, like in that documentary.
I know. I bring that up all the time.
And I looked up.
You're referring to. Come back to that thought. Don't forget it. But Johnny Carson was
with Burt Reynolds
was guest hosting.
Oh my
and he brings
God.
on Orson Welles, and Burt Reynolds had been in 2 Peter Bogdanovich movies, and he was just joking around. But Orson Welles really dug in. He really humiliated, and he was living at Peter Bogdanovich's house as a guest.
That story is incredible, and the fact
then he wrote 2 letters,
and the fact that Peter, I'm bad with his name, Bogdanovich.
Yeah.
Had such early success, like just like the golden pathway opened, and then struggled later.
Oh, right.
Like the story is so like epic on every level.
It's Shakespearean, isn't it?
Right, from every character, and it's just.
So here's Wells late in his career, cast this out, right? He's like the Shakespearean king, who's now has to humiliate himself and do wine commercials, right? Here's Orson Welles, and his protege, Peter Bogdanovich, is killing it out there. And he says in front of millions of people that are watching the Johnny Carson show, right? And he's the guest, Burt Reynolds' guest that night.
Yeah, and this is when Peter Bogdanovich's career was kind of going down.
It was beginning to.
So he piled on. That's the other thing. It's one thing if you take a shot at somebody who's on top of the world.
Yeah.
Then he can laugh it off.
Right.
But he couldn't laugh it off because shit was going pear-shaped for him. Like that,
that's right. And he was also, because he's saying, he was probably, he was the father figure, Wells, right? And Peter was the son, and he surpassed his father and in fame, and now he's hit a couple of snags, and then Wells dug in and was really saying some mean-hearted things, about it was like a lot more like a poison pen. Things he was saying.
It was off the cuff.
Yeah,
but
so
it was brutal.
Bogdanovich leaves him a voice message, like on his machine, I guess, or writes him. I don't remember which, because were there answering machines back then?
Oh yeah.
So he leaves a message and he says, "Now I know how you really feel," and Orson Welles writes back 2 letters. He mails him 2 letters. The first one says, "Please forgive me. I can't believe that I hurt you like that, and I'm really sorry." And the second letter says, "You deserved it."
Right. And they never talked again.
No, they did, but it wasn't quite. Yeah. Repaired.
Oh, right.
And then
Maybe
Wells
you're
died
right,
a few years later, like in '85.
Yeah, they never got past that.
No, not right. Not quite. Yeah.
No.
And you remember, Bogdanovich is living with Sybil Shepherd in this huge house.
No,
and they literally give Wells
cast the Sybil Shepherd lookalike like. Orson Welles made it the film they were making so obviously about
Dorothy Stratton,
Peter Bogdanovich, like
you mean in the movie
seducing Sybil Shepherd?
Oh yeah.
Through sort of like through his position.
Yeah,
like that was in the film that he was making with Peter Bogdanovich. and he had a Sybil Shepherd lookalike.
Oh, okay.
Like, so there was all kinds of crazy layers going on.
There are.
Orson Welles is like,
yeah,
man, what an interesting figure.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot about that. I read all of the recently, in preparation for all the stuff that you brought up. Coincidentally, by the way, I've been on this Orson Welles kick, and I read all the letters, interviews between Peter Bogdanovich and Welles. There's a book called This Is Orson Welles, and I'll lend it to you if you want.
I would
want to
love
read
that.
it. It's such a good book. It's like their interviews, and it was clear that he had a lot of respect for Bogdanovich. He didn't treat him like crap like he does. What's his name? Henry Jaglom, another director and he's in Other Side of the Wind too, in a very small part. But he's another filmmaker who was also like a protege of Wells's, but Welles treated him like garbage.
Well, I watched that film at it was a Netflix binge watching thing, and I had watched. I started out watching the John Coltrane documentary, Chasing Train.
Yeah, I've heard about it. I didn't see it yet.
Which is great.
Okay,
and it's like, it goes through the history of his life and his art and his ultimate work of misunderstood genius at the end.
Okay.
And dying young and everything like that. But how, just a total inspirational life story, but an artistic journey that's quite, very much his own, but also kind of mythological or whatever. And then I watched Quincy.
Oh,
the
sure.
Quincy Jones one.
Yeah, I saw it. Made by his daughter.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
Another I was like, whoa. I was like getting my mind blown.
Rashida Jones co-directed it.
Is that right?
His daughter, yeah.
It's wonderful. And then that, of course, shows a different kind of artistic journey. And one that's totally and the fact that he's still going and everything and completely sort of respected and getting his due in later life completely and still being completely relevant and an elder statesman of the most supreme order and still putting on these incredible events and everything like that. So just a very different journey than John Coltrane. And then next up it suggested the Orson Welles one. Of course, his story is the saddest of them all in terms of aging as three different geniuses, and three completely different trajectories.
Right.
And just super interesting to sort of watch them all back to back and think about them because they're kind of John Coltrane did get kind of was in a really elevated situation, but sort of ended with people misunderstanding what he was doing, and then Quincy Jones just there's no way you could be any more successful than that guy in every stage of his life, basically.
Yeah, and he knows everybody in the world.
Yeah,
right? Every leader, it's insane.
Sinatra and all that stuff.
Right. He produced Sinatra. Right.
Arrangements. He was just incredible.
He could just pick up the phone and call anybody in the world, essentially. Right. Quincy Jones. He could pick up the phone and call anybody.
Anyone.
Yeah.
Have you seen that documentary?
Quincy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah. I definitely was definitely interested. I had heard that they were going to do some big mega show tribute for Quincy Jones, and that something happened, got sabotaged somehow.
I don't know.
They were gonna. It was like a real tribute for his whatever birthday or whatever years in the business. I forget. But that documentary did a good job of it. Even though he almost dies during it.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Bounces back.
Yeah, totally.
Bounces back.
Talk about 9 lives or whatever.